Hey, good morning, everyone. It is July 3rd, I believe, and I am up early before the family wakes up so I can get you guys some great information on this Up the Ladder podcast. But also, I am specifically putting out some content for our VIP group who is working on their calendar club challenge right now. So, I'm excited and happy for all of you. And today is something that I want to chat about. Is something that I've been using a ton in the last probably 6 months, more than I have ever before, and that is heart rate training. So today I'm going to we could you could probably spend and you can probably find hours of classes and trainings on heart rate training and zones and how to best use them. I'm going to try to break this down to about 15 or 20 minutes, maybe less. But I'll kind of give you my experience and how I've been using it. So as I've been doing a lot more training lately, based on a lot of the research and coaches. So right, like I'm trying to coach you guys. I also get coached by other mentors and people who are helping me with my training, but also just doing a ton of research on podcasts and books, and a couple people that I recommend that I've gotten a lot of this information from is a medical doctor, Peter Attia, MD. He's got a great podcast where he talks with a cycling researcher about mitochondrial health, which is super important for blood sugar handling and also athletic performance. Another great resource that I've gotten a lot of this information from is from Ben Greenfield. He's got an awesome podcast that I listen to a lot on a ton of different topics. But he goes through heart rate training quite a bit in one of his books. In fact, I was just looking at it this morning. It's called Beyond Training. So that's where I've gotten a lot of the information that I've looked at. And essentially, what it breaks down to is you want to do about 80% of your training or your exercising in what's called Zone 2. And then you want to do some type of interval training or some type of interval workouts, whether that's running, biking, or just doing more intense lifting exercises, about 20% of the time. Now for our calendar club challenge, we're starting at a much more basic level where you're just working up to doing sustained exercise, basically getting into the habit and routine of exercising every day. But as we progress through the month and as we start to then look at other challenges and things that you want to progress to, using heart rate training is a phenomenal way to do that. And it is super simple. Do not get overwhelmed by trying to keep track of your heart rate or how to best use these systems. So the way I've been using it is, about 4 to 5 days a week, I am doing what's called Zone 2 training. Again, this month, probably because you'll be doing longer times and longer distances, the reason why I want to go over this now is basically for this month, every day you want to be in Zone 2. So you want to try to, for some of you, it may be hard to stay in Zone 2. And for others of you, you may need to kind of work your way up to Zone 2. But that is like the fat burning zone. It's the endurance zone. It's where you're going to get the most bang for your buck in exercise in general. So to kind of backtrack, a couple ways to monitor your heart rate. Right now, there are a ton of, if you have an Apple Watch, if you have a Fitbit, if you have any kind of wearable right now, almost all of them measure heart rate. So that's almost the easy part. There probably are some that are better than others. Polar has probably the best watches and heart rate straps. They kind of pioneered this whole process of looking at heart rate zones. Honestly, I just use my so what I use is I used to do Orange Theory Fitness, and as part of Orange Theory, they used heart rate training, and so I still have my Orange Theory heart rate strap. I'm assuming you could find heart rate straps on Amazon or other places if you don't have one, and I connect it to an app which I will post with this called Map My Run. But you can do in the app, you can do any other types of exercising. So when I hike, I type in that's the exercise that I'm doing. When I'm cycling, I do that, but it helps you track your distance, your heart rate, your how far you've gone, your pace. It's kind of how I keep track of everything as I'm training. And so I just consistently use that app for every exercise. Whether I'm doing a lifting workout, I'll turn that app on to track it. If I'm doing a walk or a run or biking, I use that app. I'll strap my heart rate monitor on, and I keep track of all of those things. What I love about it is that when I have my heart rate strap on and I have the app on my phone, it links up to my watch. I have an Apple Watch, so they automatically sync, and all I have to do is look at my watch and it tells me which zone I'm in. So I don't have to try to calculate or remember, what are the numbers, what are the ranges that I'm supposed to be in for each of these zones. I can simply look at my watch and it tells me which zone I'm in. That's why I love Map My Run in using heart rate training, and but you have to have a strap to connect it up to. So if you really want to get into heart rate training, that's probably the simplest, easiest way to do it, unless you want to buy a more expensive system where you're where they're already connected, like a Polar watch and band. That would be a probably more high-tech way of doing it, but this is my kind of workaround, and it's worked great, like I said, for the last 6 months, no problem. Finding your heart rate zones is all based on your age, essentially. So to find your max heart rate, there's a couple ways to do it. The easiest way is 220 minus your age. So that would give you roughly your max heart rate. Now, if you've been training and you've been doing some things like that, you would want to, there's some field tests that you can do to also calculate your max heart rate. One is running, one is on a bike. You can also do it sport specific if you're big into swimming. But for running, you would find a pretty serious hill that you could run for endurance, or and then you want to sprint up that hill as fast as you can. Once you've done that, once you've hit what you feel is like your max, you want to recover, do that twice, and then take the average of those two runs. If you're doing it on a bike, you want to do the same thing. You want to do a nice warm-up, do probably, if you're on a trainer, do probably, a really solid max interval training, where you're doing at least 2 to 4 rounds of maxing yourself out as far as, as hard as you can go on that bike, and then take the average of those, and that's, pretty rough. You can also go get it tested in some labs. There's some places around Columbus that do that. So, but the quick and easy way to do it is 220 minus your age. So there's 5 zones that you want to be thinking about when you're looking at heart rates. Let's see, I wrote down kind of a list of where the heart rates go with the actual descriptions, but essentially zone 1 is your recovery system. It's easy, it just stimulates blood flow to an area. You want to use this as a recovery. You're not going to get a ton of inflammation and muscle breakdown or stress with it. Examples are going to be an easy yoga class, light swim, walking the dog, things where you're just out for a stroll. You're not trying to get exercise. Zone 2, like I said, zone 2 is where we want to be at right now. So zone 1 was 50 to 60% of your heart rate. So if you are trying to calculate that, you take 220 minus your age, and then on your calculator hit times 0.6, and that would be the high range, the high end of your zone 1. Zone 2 is going to be 60 to 70% of your heart rate. So again, you're going to take 220 minus your age, and then to find that range, you're going to multiply that by 0.6 or 0.7. And in the middle of that is where you want to be for this month as we're training and we're getting through the calendar club. That's going to give you the best endurance benefits. That's going to make sure that you're not breaking down your system, and you're not going to be super sore the next day. So some of you are going to have to slow down your training. Some of you may need to speed that up a little bit. But this is the fat burning zone. This is the best zone to do endurance training in. And so essentially, if we're going to be exercising every single day, trying to improve and log longer distance, either miles or minutes, more than what you're used to doing, you want to be doing this in this zone 2 all through this month. And then after this month, again, about 80% of your workouts or your trainings, or as you're getting out there, you want to be in this zone 2. Your zone 2 is more of an oxidative stress. Again, this should be the bulk of your training. The biggest benefit is that it is increasing the number of mitochondria in your cells. These are what gives your cells energy. They make ATP. This is why it's part of the fat burning stage and cycle. This is phenomenal at regulating glucose. And in this phase, you are not going to be developing lactic acid. That's why you can do it for long periods of time, and you're not going to be sore the next day. You might be sore because you're using your muscles, but you're not going to have severe lactic acid, that rubbery leg, if you stick in this zone. So zone 3 is 70 to 80% of your heart rate. This is for more of a muscular endurance, not cardiovascular endurance. This is where, when you're on that run or bike ride or walk, and you hit that little bit of a hill, you can still, hold a conversation. You still carry a conversation. You can kind of keep your pace, but you can feel that you're working a little bit harder as you do it. Zone 4 is going to be 80 to 90% of your heart rate. This is where you're working on more of like the speed if you are actually training for something. This is the max that you can work out and not build up considerable lactic acid. This will bring on some premature fatigue, and will kind of delay recovery depending on how you're using it. This is where your legs start to feel a little bit like rubber after you've been doing the exercise or workout. Zone 5 is going to be 90 to 100% of your heart rate. This is where you're going to be doing, super high intensity sprints, hills, interval training. As I've been, really looking at using heart rates, the worst place to be is constantly in zone 3. So I was guilty of this for a long time, where I wanted to make the most of my workout, and I had a limited amount of time to doing it. And so I was always kind of hanging out in the same kind of range. The intensity didn't really fluctuate. I just wanted to try to like maximize my time. And what I've learned is that that's really counterproductive. So, kind of maxing out that, I'm going to try to burn really hard for a short period of time, shorter period of time. I was always probably hanging out in this zone 3 and zone 4, and metabolically, cardiovascularly, aerobically, pretty much in every factor based on the research I've done, that's the wrong thing to do. So there's been a lot of studies done where they'll take pro athletes and endurance athletes, and they'll have one group do the same bulk of training but at different intensity levels. So they'll be doing the same mileage each week, they'll be doing the same exact workouts, it's just the intensity levels change. One group will do at 80% in zone 2, 20% in higher levels. The other group will do 50-50, and the group who does the zone 2 training actually performs better at the end of 4 to 6 weeks than the other group who is training harder. And so it's kind of counterproductive. It doesn't make a ton of sense when you describe it, but based on what's happening inside your cells and inside your mitochondria, going slower is actually better. But you have to be in that zone 2. And so that's where looking at the heart rate makes a difference. You need to be in that right 60 to 70% of your heart rate to get those benefits of that zone 2 training. So again, use this, make sure you're in that zone 2. You're going to maximize what you're able to do in July as we go through this, but you're also significantly going to maximize your benefits, your cardiovascular fitness. If you're doing the challenge and you're doing this zone 2 training, your cardiovascular fitness is going to be through the roof at the end of July. So if you have any questions on this, I'm happy to help you get set up and do this any way I can. But I want to get this out to you because I don't want you, as we're getting started in this this training, to be doing training too hard. Now, on the flip side of that, this is going to be, I should have prefaced this, I suppose, so I'll do that in the notes. This is going to be for the people who are walking, biking, jogging, running as part of the challenge. If you are doing the movement part of the challenge with what Sean is recommending, then you actually want to get your heart rate up. You want to be in zone 4 as you're doing this training. So as you're doing fewer exercises, it may be hard to get up into that zone 4 because we're just in the beginning of the month. But by the end of the month, the goal that you want is, as you're working out, as you're doing those HIIT exercises and those movements, to be up in zone 4 at least. So again, you want to avoid zone 3. For endurance, you want to be doing zone 2. For the movements and for the HIIT workouts, you want to be in zone 4. So keep it up, everyone. I'm really excited for you to all see some really important and big changes as we continue this month. And enjoy. Have an awesome 4th of July weekend. Thanks.